I would love to give a wider scheme and perspective about today's event, which was, as we said, welcomed and shook really some strong interest in our local community, hence the number of participants that you are seeing. The organizing committee, briefly, is made up of myself, of Francesco Inzerillo, who is a graduate in computer science and engineering at Politecnico di Milano. His research paths go through data science, startup processes, and innovative industries. So that's the background, thanks to which we are seeing Francesco Digital Product. Then we have, as a guest from the heritage sector, Mrs. Mariella Anzalone, who has a master's degree in European literatures and truly holds the ESACH philosophy among our group, since she holds and embraces European culture as a whole. And she's also a graduate in art history. Her research paths go through the historical avant-garde, so the art from last century, from the 20th century. And with her, we're going to go deep into this cultural frame of this year, which, as you know, as for people who are from Palermo, this is the 400th year from the discovery and from the birth, we can say, of the spiritual interest for Santa Rosalia, who is not only a religious symbol, but is a spiritual symbol, a community symbol, which goes way beyond Christian beliefs, as you know. Rosalia herself comes from a prehistoric cult that started in Mount Pellegrino, a very big mountain in the city of Palermo, 10,000 years before Christ. So we are way beyond these conventional Christian schemes. Then we have Mrs. Camilla Guidi, who is an art historian from the Maxi Museum in Rome. At the end of the meeting of this workshop, we'll give her short contribution as a professional who works in the cultural sector, which, as we know from ESACH position paper, is one of the key points in ESACH activities. So strengthening the sector and receiving some hints and some stories from who lives it from within. Then we have Mr. Tancredi Siragusa, who is a graduate in aerospace engineering. He would have been very happy to join us today, but unfortunately, he is in the middle of his world, of his job. In fact, he is currently on a flight above the skies of Europe. He's coming back from the city of Toulouse in France, which is the aerospace capital of Europe, and he would have told us about the perspective of urban and rural landscapes seen from above, seen from the sky. I think we will be very happy to welcome him in some of our next events. So now this is 6. Thanks for all the people who joined. And I would kindly ask Francesco to start the first of the 2 chapters of today's event, which goes into the topic, into the matter of digitalization of cultural heritage, specifically Panormus Geoheritage, the innovative map that Francesco is going to talk about. Thank you.
Yep, absolutely. All right, so what I'm about to present here to you is this resource I've been collecting during the course of the last months, which is an interactive map made with Google My Maps. Some of you will know this tool. Basically, it's an instrument that allows you to overlay layers, markers, polygons over the real map of the world. And in this case, I've used it to collect and gather information about a whole series of cultural sites, basically any place or site that may hold some cultural value in terms of the heritage of the city of Palermo. So it may be, of course, it may be the more classical kind of heritage sites, so churches or museums, of course. But also, it comes to my mind industrial archaeology. So, for example, abandoned factories that, of course, now with the touristic trends of today, of 2025, do hold some value. Maybe not the same, still not the same as churches, but of course, it's in the eyes of the viewer. And this map, the way I oriented it, it's, let's say, in a perspective point of view. So it's not so much a tool to look into the past and see where the past left traces in the city that remain today, but rather a tool for the citizenry of the city to investigate their own hometown, something that many people are not that expert about, and investigate into their hometown and kind of discover what's there, what's being evaluated, what's being appreciated, most importantly, and what's not. Because, of course, there's always room for improvement, and there's some maybe abandoned sites or maybe some museums that are not well managed, for example. Many things can go wrong, and many things can go right at the same time.
So, Francesco, I would
Yeah,
ask you why, first of all, you might even get into the matter. So, by clicking into and getting into
yeah,
the
yeah, yeah.
interface, you could show us how this map works, because as one can easily see, this wide research, this wide and long research led to a digital product like this, which incentivizes and democratizes the use and the knowledge of cultural heritage by the citizens, first of all. And I would ask you, first of all, to show us this interface, which then will be shared with our participants. And I would also ask you what were the main challenges in creating this digital product.
Yeah, so the main feature of this map, as I click in some of the sites that are detailed here, is the featureization. So when one takes a cultural heritage site that has been added to the map, one can see which, let's say, category it lies in. The main criteria of distinction is its current use as of today, what the building is being used for. And as you can see, it's a very well detailed description here in the description of the map. And it's also then reflected in the categorization in the sidebar. One can firstly categorize whether it's being used or not. So, for example, the sites that you can see here are of a dark brown color, are sites that are currently abandoned, or sites that are currently in, let's say, in a derelict state. And then when one gets into the sites that are actually used, one can differentiate. For example, I will check here Chiesa di San Gregorio Papa al Capo. It's a church that is active, of course. It holds services and homilies, so I will classify it as a yellow. Or otherwise, I may click on Teatro Politeama. It's a well-functioning theater in Palermo, so it will be classified in the spettacolo category. So let's say show for shows. And yeah, as Marco was mentioning before, what's the main challenge in creating a resource like that? Well, by far the most challenging aspect is information gathering, because for this tool to be useful and to be existing, it means that there's no other tools to take information from, of course. So one has to browse around the internet, browse around the real world, and kind of assess, evaluate, ask the people that are responsible for each site what condition the site is in. And fortunately, there are some good resources one can pick from. And I had already the tabs open here. For example, one website I did pick some resources from was La Sicilia in Rete, which is a website managed by some angels I don't know. But basically, yeah, it's a catalog of documented cultural heritage sites all around Sicily. Another amazing website that is around there for Palermo is this one, which shows you the normal map of the city and overlays old maps over it. One can quickly see, for example, if I stumble upon a church that doesn't exist anymore in Palermo and I want to find where its ruins are, I can overlay this map and see, oh, it's actually detailed here in an old map and it's there. And I can retrieve it and place it here. And another aspect I wanted to show you guys of this map is that it's in progress. It's in very much in progress. What I hid, it was this light gray layer, which is unclassified sites. So sites that are known for their location, but that are yet to be classified. Let's say determined if they're used for residential buildings or as a nightclub, let's say. So yeah, the most important aspects I would say, summing up, is it's for prospective use. It's for the citizens to be aware of their surroundings, and if they really care about their sites, promote them, be active in reutilizing them. And number two, it's in progress. It's a tool that is in progress, and it's open to everyone seeing it right now to contribute and to, yeah, to add to the resources.
Yeah, thank you very much, Francesco. And I think that the two strong points that come to my mind by seeing this map and by seeing how much can be done to complete and to enrich this work, this research, is that first of all, and I'm referring to our co-European associates, is that this model, this specific pilot model, can be replicated and scaled in every specific European urban context. I think this is the strongest value relating your research with today's event, which has a pan-European scope. And secondly, this could be a crowdsourced work where everyone could give their contribution, their report about new information that could reach a grassroots research like this one. I think this could be the first moment to involve briefly our participants, our community, and ask them, for example, to give a practical and concrete use of this digital tool. We could first of all ask someone from our local community to think about a place, a venue that comes to their mind, maybe an unknown one, a secondary one, which is neglected, which is near one's house, and Francesco might find it and tag it on the map if it isn't still there. And we could ask to our non-local participants, we could say what they think and how they perceive a digital tool like that and how it would be to have it implemented in their own urban landscape. So, Francesco, I would ask you to cast the screen again, and I would ask someone from our local community who is from Palermo knows it. So please just give your idea, give the name of a place that we could find on the map. I would love to ask, for example, Roberto, who has a really strong experience with the concept of landscape, even though from a botanical and ecological perspective. So thank you, Roberto, who we are seeing on the screen right now. We'll give you the floor.
No, I mean, something just popped up in my mind about botanical perspective you were saying. And maybe, Francesco, you could potentially, I don't know if you already done it, but you potentially could also map the important trees all around the cities. For example, just popped up in my mind, for example, the secular trees, trees in Parco della Favorita. You already have it? I don't know.
No, but it's definitely a great idea. To this point, I would say that the city I live in, which is Milan, does have this kind of database, monumental trees around the
Yeah.
city, and I think it's a pretty big part of the city's identity.
Yeah, it's also, yeah, I mean that these trees is incredible, huge. It's huge, and it's also, I think it's one of the oldest in olive trees in, I think, even in Europe or something like that. So I think it's, yeah, kind of interesting to also add that one. And maybe another one could be the one in the Ficus magnoliensis. Is the third biggest trees in Europe or something, if I'm not wrong.
Yeah,
Urban
the one in
trees
Piazza
or something.
Marina,
Yeah, Piazza Marina, exactly. Yeah, yeah.
Albero
I mean,
Garibaldi.
yes. Is it this one? Okay, yeah, I don't know. Not sure. Yeah.
Absolutely, yes.
That's a very important contribution. Thank you, Roberto. I would love to listen you more if you have.
Well, it depends on the target. I mean, if maybe you also want to, there is a specific trend that is now going on in all the cities around the world, that is biodiversity sightseeing also in urban environment for birders and for people who are interested in nature. Maybe perhaps you could potentially think about some areas where you can see the most bird species, or maybe some really characteristic ones, such as, for example, I'm thinking about the ortobotanico that present a lot of high biodiversity. But yeah, people already kind of expect this kind of information since it's the only really big garden around the city center. So yeah, maybe it's already an information that you don't really need.
But that's a great point, and this could be, since we're talking about perspectives and layers, and we would say in Italian chiavi di lettura, ways to read something. This would be a great idea to create another map. I would ask, before moving on to the next big topic, I would love to ask our European associates what they think about this little local pilot project that can be, be transformed into a European-wide model. Jasna, for example.
I mean, I really like the project, and I like the, how meticulous Francesco was in pinpointing all of this. And I see so many potential in how to use this information. I think it's one of those things that this is a database that at first you really don't know where it's gonna lead you, but then you have, as you said, so many ways to read this. Like, it can be relevant for any number of culture tourism, sustainable tourism project. It can also be quite relevant, let's say, from the urbanism point of view, from the gentrification point of view, on the topic of climate change, or even like heat islands, and like, why is it happening where it's happening, right? So I do think that, it's very inspiring. I'm really amazed, like, how can yeah, because I've done something similar, or I've tried to do something similar, and in my really honest opinion, I didn't have enough stamina to continue and to work all of my ways and points up. So I really want to congratulate Francesco for doing such an amazing work, because it does take a lot of time, and sometimes you're in the woods and you don't know where it's going to lead you. But as I said, I think that this is an amazing tool that can be very, instrumental in many, many different ideas. And I would also strongly encourage you, maybe like, to, I don't know how things work there and stuff like that, but talk to municipal, I don't know, authorities or whomever, or if you see a youth call for a project, or I think that it can have many, many different facets and uses. So it's a really cool database, and I think it's really necessary, because we see that now more and more of these initiatives and policies, in the end, they need to be data driven and data backed up. Otherwise it's just wishful thinking, and it's not going to be well implemented. So I can't really think of right now of any similar project that I've heard of. But of course, since we are in touch, should I see anything that might be interested, I will pass on the information. Maybe you would like to also liaison with them and continue working. But thank you for the presentation. It was really good, the idea and the inspiration.
Yeah, no, thank you. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to host it.
Thank you so much, Francesco. This, as Jasna said, and I totally agree with her, this was a really valuable and precious contribution. Your invention, that's the way I would call it, can be really an inspiring model for the European cultural sector. And it's also very valuable to see how professional, serious, and determined you are. That's nothing new for the ones who know you, but I think that's a good way for to get to know you for the ones who still for the ones who don't know you. I also say thanks to Emma, who maybe can't activate the microphone, but who gave a contribution, a written message specifically. I have the pleasure to read it to all of you. And she says that she moved to Palermo a few months ago, and she still is in exploration phase. So, and she expresses her happiness to use this map, this digital tool. thank you for your next words, because Emma says that it's a pleasure to be in Palermo even for this short time. So yeah, finding information is sometimes can be hard, but thanks to tools, to models, and to tools like this, a process like this can be easier. So thank you, Emma. But Francesco is the one who deserves the compliments, of course. So if you all agree, I would move to our next chapter of today's event, and is curated by Mrs. Mariella Anzalone, art historian, who will give us a valuable panoramic view about the cultural frame we are in, because as we said, last year, 2024, was the 400th year of celebration of Saint Rosalia, a syncretic spiritual symbol for the Mediterranean, for Mediterranean Europe. So Mariella is also co-host now. I will give her the floor, but I think that Francesco shall cast the screen also for Mariella's section, so maybe he's the one to share the screen. Thank you, everyone, and thank you. Mariella, we will switch to Italian from now on.
Okay, buonasera. So, as a senior art historian, I will talk about Santa Rosalia, but in this second part, we will talk in Italian, right, Marco? As Marco said before, okay? Dunque, come Marco ci ha detto prima, lo scorso anno è stato il 400° di Santa Rosalia, del ritrovamento delle spoglie di Santa Rosalia. Santa Rosalia è un'istituzione a Palermo, ma in realtà questa santuzza è uscita fuori, possiamo dire, dalla città negli ultimi 400 anni e se n'è andata un po' in giro per l'Europa, direi, per il mondo. Quindi il 15 luglio del 1624 vengono ritrovate le sue spoglie mortali. Ma dobbiamo fare una piccola introduzione prima, cioè dobbiamo capire dal punto di vista politico e sociale qual era la situazione in quel momento. E in realtà la situazione in quel momento era particolare perché la Chiesa, all'indomani del Concilio di Trento, si riorganizza per controbattere a tutte quelle che sono le teorie e le tesi di Lutero e dei suoi amici protestanti, dei suoi seguaci. E quindi chiaramente la nascita di Santa Rosalia, la nascita della figura di Santa Rosalia, la Santuzza, nasce in un momento in cui la Chiesa si riorganizza e quindi è la cosiddetta Chiesa controriformata. La Chiesa della Controriforma è una Chiesa che mette l'arte al centro del suo progetto educazionale. L'arte deve docere, muovere e delectare. Diventa uno strumento importantissimo di risposta a quelle che sono le tematiche protestanti. Sostanzialmente Lutero e i protestanti rifiutavano quasi tutti quelli che erano i dogmi della Chiesa e il tema della santità diventa un tema molto importante. Quindi la Chiesa controriformata si attrezza per controbattere a quelle che sono le teorie di Lutero e dei suoi amici. Questa tematica della santità si introduce perfettamente in questo periodo. Perché? Perché i luterani non riconoscevano la validità dei santi, non riconoscevano i loro sacrifici, non riconoscevano l'intercessione dei santi presso Gesù Cristo. Dunque cosa succede? La Chiesa controriformata si attrezza per dimostrare esattamente il contrario e comincia a canonizzare santi nuovi addirittura nel 1622, cioè poco prima di Santa Rosalia, ne canonizza 5, tutti in una volta: San Francesco Saverio, Sant'Ignazio di Loyola, Filippo Neri, cioè fa un'operazione di ricostruzione di quello che è il tessuto della Chiesa che si sta sgretolando. Santa Rosalia, la nostra Santuzza, si inserisce in quella che è questa tematica ed è esattamente la tematica dei santi locali. La santità locale era molto importante perché il culto della santità locale attirava moltissimi fedeli e a loro la Chiesa voleva arrivare, no? La Chiesa si attrezza per arrivare ai fedeli, per comunicare quello che vuole, contrariamente, insomma, a quelle che sono le tesi del Lutero. Dunque, il 1624 è un anno molto importante per Palermo perché il 15 luglio vengono scoperte le spoglie mortali di Santa Rosalia nella grotta dell'Erta. Erta è una grotta che si trova tutt'oggi su un Monte Pellegrino e che ancora oggi è oggetto di pellegrinaggio. Rosalia Sinibaldi era una giovane di nobile famiglia, di nobile estrazione sociale, ma che non era mai stata molto interessata né alla mondanità né alla nobiltà. Piuttosto era una ragazza interessata alla spiritualità. Nella sua breve vita trascorse molti anni nella grotta della Quisquina e poi un'altra parte di questo periodo trascorse nella grotta dove sono state ritrovate le sue spoglie mortali, quindi dell'erta. E Santa Rosalia era praticamente di discendenza nobile, chiaramente tutto questo era funzionale alla città di Palermo in quel momento, cioè avere una giovane vergine che era morta in santità, in odor di santità, dentro una grotta palermitana, in un momento in cui a Palermo scoppiava la peste, perché ricordiamoci che il 1624 fu un anno terribile per la città di Palermo. La città di Palermo fu messa in ginocchio da una pestilenza terribile, quindi ritrovare queste ossa sembrò un segno che fu chiaramente utilizzato in modo interessante, nel senso che Giannettino Doria, il famoso cardinale allora che aveva un grande potere, decise velocemente che la santa, che Rosalia, anzi non era ancora santa, che Rosalia sarebbe diventata la protettrice di Palermo e in 448, il 15 agosto, la fece diventare protettrice di Palermo. Chiaramente questo fece storcere il naso a molti, ma così era. Nel frattempo, il 4 settembre si organizzava una processione enorme che attraversava tutta la città con un quadro in testa raffigurante Santa Rosalia. Ed ecco che qui veniamo alla prima iconografia di Santa Rosalia, che è questa, la nostra foto a sinistra, che rappresenta appunto la Santa che intercede presso la Santissima Trinità con i simboli che saranno poi i suoi simboli iconografici classici, la corona di rose, il giglio a terra, Rosalia, Rose e Lilium, l'abbiamo già nel nome, no? E poi il teschio, il libro e così via. Ma a questo punto esce fuori un dettaglio molto interessante. Il 1624 è un anno importante perché a Palermo arriva un giovane pittore che poi sarà famosissimo, un ritrattista, un pittore di grande fama, un pittore fiammingo che altri non è se non Anton van Dyck. È un giovane pittore 25enne, ma è stato chiamato per fare il ritratto di Emanuele Filiberto di Savoia, il quale d'altra parte morirà di peste ad agosto. Dunque il nostro Van Dyck non riuscirà a fargli ritratto, in cambio però resterà qui e parteciperà in modo importante alla creazione dell'iconografia di Santa Rosalia. Perché lui e la sua scuola lavorarono a Palermo, ma lavorarono anche fuori Palermo infatti, ma di questo ne parliamo dopo. Dunque, a questo punto viene da farsi una domanda da storico dell'arte. La domanda è: ma perché il Senato palermitano aveva qui Anton van Dyck e chiede a Vincenzo La Barbera di creare l'iconografia di Santa Rosalia? Vincenzo La Barbera era un pittore mediocre, termitano, che veniva da una buona famiglia genovese, quindi era piuttosto importante come famiglia, aveva oggi diremmo delle entrature importanti, però restava pur sempre un pittore mediocre. Era però un pittore che accontentava la committenza, cioè era uno di quei pittori, di quei personaggi che stavano nel momento giusto al posto giusto. Ecco perché viene scelto lui e viene scelto per una ragione molto semplice, perché questo è un quadro politico, questo è un quadro che ha una valenza politica perché è stato richiesto dal Senato di Palermo e in quel momento Palermo era una città sotto assedio, chiusa dal lockdown, con un porto che non funzionava più e per Palermo il porto era la cosa più importante. Da quel porto partivano i commerci per tutta Europa, era praticamente un'apertura sul Mediterraneo e sull'Europa. Da lì si importavano non solo le opere d'arte, ma il sale, lo zolfo, il frumento, tutto ciò che teneva in piedi la società dal punto di vista economico. Dunque il Senato di Palermo ordina a Francesco La Barbera di fare un quadro con l'iconografia di Santa Rosalia dove si vede alle sue spalle un porto attivo, un porto funzionante. La Santuzza intercede per la Santissima Trinità e la peste non c'è a Palermo, cioè il Senato di Palermo manda in giro l'immagine di una Palermo risanata, salvata dalla Santuzza e questo porto attivo ci dimostra che la città vive bene, non ci sono problemi. Nell'iconografia successiva, cioè nel quadro dell'anno dopo, nel 1625, vediamo invece una committenza religiosa, è la chiesa di Sant'Anna alla Misericordia. Fra l'altro queste due opere sono visibili, una al Museo Diocesano e l'altra alla chiesa di Sant'Anna alla Misericordia. E qui vediamo una Santa Rosalia che intercede sempre presso la Santissima Trinità con il solito saio francescano, ma stavolta il porto è il deserto e si vedono i sofferenti, gli appestati, cioè qui c'è un afflatto religioso, umano, che mancava nel precedente dipinto. Quindi vediamo come Vincenzo La Barbera si adatta alla committenza, è uno che esegue bene gli ordini. Ecco perché in quel momento si sceglie Vincenzo La Barbera e lo si preferisce a Van Dyck, perché Van Dyck non avrebbe garantito la stessa obbedienza e probabilmente neanche lo stesso tipo di iconografia così semplice, così spontanea e così facile anche, di facile comprensione per il pubblico, che era un pubblico semplice, no? Era quello a cui parlava la Chiesa. Per i colti c'era un altro tipo di linguaggio, ma quella è un'altra storia, è un po' più complessa. Dunque siamo arrivati al 4 settembre. Quando esce fuori questo quadro e va in processione per la città, cosa succede? Miracolosamente, ma non è un miracolo, era stato Van Dyck che aveva avuto l'idea, tutti i collezionisti, gli ecclesiastici, gli ordini religiosi cominciano ad esporre i loro quadri di Santa Rosalia, cioè questo quadro percorre tutte le strade della città e ritrova, non so, in casa di Marco Gezio, il gesuita collezionista, un ritratto di Santa Rosalia. I gesuiti espongono 3 ritratti, uno a casa professa, uno al convivio, uno alla chiesa del Gesù. Il console fiammingo espone quadri che rappresentano Santa Rosalia e fatti da chi? Quadri dove sicuramente c'era la mano di Van Dyck e dei suoi aiuti. Ecco perché Van Dyck contribuisce moltissimo all'iconografia di Santa, quindi il primo iconografo ufficiale è rimasto, diciamo, fino all'anno scorso restava Vincenzo La Barbera, ma oggi qualcosa è cambiato. L'anno scorso, credo proprio nel 2023, una ricercatrice di Tor Vergata ha trovato delle informazioni che proverebbero che in effetti l'iconografia di Santa Rosalia proviene da Van Dyck e non che c'è lo zampino di Van Dyck, anzi, forse c'è più che lo zampino di Van Dyck. Vedremo, vedremo. Intanto arriviamo al febbraio del 1625, quando le ossa di Santa Rosalia vengono riconosciute effettivamente sue, quindi viene effettivamente riconosciuta la santa. E il 9 giugno del 1625, cosa che festeggeremo quest'anno, si dà vita al primo festino per Santa Rosalia. Il festino per Santa Rosalia è qualcosa di straordinario, seguito da carri trionfali in cartapeste, i famosi carri seicenteschi, con le ossa della Santa, le spoglie mortali che vengono rinchiuse dentro un'urna preziosissima, ancora visitabile presso la cattedrale, in legno, vetro e argento, opera di argentieri palermitani famosissimi, che viene portata appunto in giro per la città. A questo punto il lavoro di Van Dyck in questa città è finito, perché tutto questo Van Dyck praticamente fa parte di questo nostro racconto, perché è una delle figure più importanti del nostro racconto, no? È un artista europeo che si è ritrovato chiuso un anno a Palermo, quindi non c'è passato, ha lasciato delle impronte molto importanti nei quadri di Pietro Novelli, nei pittori siciliani della Controriforma, dappertutto. Comunque diciamo che a questo punto la città guarisce dalla peste. Nel settembre del 1625 Van Dyck può tornarsene a casa. È chiaro che Santa Rosalia esce da Palermo ed esce, mi piace raccontare, sui piedi di Van Dyck. Se ne va via con Van Dyck che parte innanzitutto con una commissione di un ordine religioso che gli dà appunto come committenza una grande pala d'altare con la Santa Rosalia. E la Santuzza comincia a girare per l'Europa perché arriva nelle Fiandre, arriva in Spagna, se ne va in giro per l'Europa e nascono delle iconografie bellissime. Noi l'anno scorso come Dipartimento di Storia dell'Arte abbiamo organizzato almeno 3 mostre importanti, di cui sicuramente la più prestigiosa è questa che mi piace mostrarvi. Questo è il catalogo della mostra organizzata dalla professoressa Maria Concetta Di Natale, l'Estasi di Santa Rosalia. Questa iconografia di una Santa Rosalia raffinatissima con una chioma rosso tiziano e che somiglia molto alla Maddalena penitente è di Van Dyck. Questa è una delle più belle iconografie, delle immagini più belle, più raffinate di Santa Rosalia, e ce n'è una al Museo del Prado e una al MoMA di New York. Dunque la nostra Santuzza è arrivata anche in America e mi piace credere che non ci sia arrivata solo grazie a Van Dyck, ma che ci sia arrivata grazie ai nostri emigranti che sono andati via lo scorso secolo con dentro la valigia un quadro della Santuzza che li proteggeva e hanno esposto questi quadri nelle loro case. E così la Santuzza non è più solo un fenomeno palermitano, è un fenomeno che è una santa amata in tutto il mondo, in tutta Europa prima e in tutto il mondo. Questa è la grande eredità che la santa ha lasciato a questa città. Grazie.
E non poteva esserci conclusione migliore per un intervento di così grande valore e ispirazione. Grazie Mariella, o meglio, grazie dottoressa Anzalone, per questa panoramica di dettaglio, cosa che sembra un ossimoro, ma questo è stato su Santa Rosalia. Tutti noi, insomma, interessati al patrimonio, siamo soliti pensare che questo dipinto di Vincenzo La Barbera che abbiamo visto sulla parte sinistra dello schermo sia la nascita iconografica di Santa Rosalia, cioè la Santuzza ha questo aspetto perché questo aspetto ce l'ha per la prima volta in quel dipinto. Invece, grazie al tuo intervento, abbiamo seguito radici decisamente europee, parlando di Anton van Dyck e della pittura fiamminga, che ci aiutano a costruire un quadro più articolato. I will just sum up what we have heard in the last 10 minutes, specifically for Jasna and for ESACH as a whole, who are welcoming us in this event. Basically, Saint Rosalia, seen in the scope of art history, is not only, as we said, a religious, a spiritual symbol, a cultural symbol, but is also an iconographic, a visual symbol so important that takes its roots in Flemish paintings, thanks to painter Anton van Dyck, who was from the Netherlands, we could say, from the Flemish area. And so we can see how even for centuries ago, there were links, cultural and intellectual links that gave the idea, the concept of Europe as a whole. Now, since we are perfectly in harmony with the times and the duration we thought about, we might even, first of all, open the floor to our participants, to our guests, to welcome their thoughts about this chapter, and then we will go to the third and last chapter of this event. So again, through the written chat or through your microphone, we would love to hear you. I would start from Guido, who is the next user, if he wishes to give us a short and valuable idea about what he saw.
Yeah, sure. I found very interesting everything that has been said, that have been said, and maybe in the future, I mean, it could be expanded to other cities and probably maybe calling around other experts. For example, from the city of Trent, I think this project would be work very well, considering also the fact that the city is not so big. I mean, it might bring an interesting perspective. I mean,
I definitely agree, Guido. Francesco is the one who might answer this and who might extend this model to Trento as well, which would be an interesting urban landscape since it's very different from Palermo. We're still in Italy, but we're along the Alps, so it's a totally different landscape from the one we started. We might ask the user UA. Or even again, Roberto. Oh, okay.
Yeah, actually, I found very interesting the comparison between the two paintings. I found it very interesting how, through artistic value, you could reconstruct the history of Palermo. Thank you.
So if anyone has a thought, their 2 cents to share, will be welcome.
I would like to also thank for the second presentation. Thank you for this summing up. My Italian allows me to understand, not to speak, but I always find very emotional how people, when they investigate these kind of events and maybe like people from the past, they really invest themselves as well, and that it often goes beyond religious, which I find very also reassuring, that today's society, however they see religion, can also acknowledge and share and cherish all the heritage that's coming from that part of our past, because it's very significant part. So yeah, I really enjoyed the presentation and the story about the Rosalia. So thank you very much, and I enjoyed the passion that Mariella put into presenting.
Thank you. Thank you.
Can I say something?
Of course.
Okay,
please.
hi, my name is Tula. I am quarter Italian, but my Italian's really bad, so I'm not going to say much at all. But grazie a tutti. I missed the beginning, sorry, so I'm not sure if you're like capturing any evaluation, but what I would say is thinking about how you might evaluate the usefulness of this beyond, I suppose, our notion of egos and our expert roles, thinking about its applicability to communities, and also thinking about the limitations potentially around if you are naturally increasing visibility to certain places in the city, what there could be negative impacts for other community people that live there. Just so thinking about kind of increased numbers might lead to increased noise, increased tensions, maybe some positives too, more busy cafes, but thinking a bit more, I think, around how this map has the potential to perhaps change the day-to-day a little bit, and that might just be seasonal rather than kind of throughout the year. But that's what was in my mind when you were presenting, I would say, is really thinking about the longevity, its usefulness, and whether and also my question is actually around stakeholders. So who did you engage from the local community on the project? So I think that's really important. Thank you.
Yeah, so to your earlier question, I would say about the impact that such a mapping can have on the community. This is basically just a database, of course, a labeled database. Data, fortunately for us, data doesn't express emotions, so it can be interpreted. It depends entirely on how it's presented, that it's interpreted, right? So basically, I would say that the labeling, the kind of labeling that we want to give to, for example, cultural sites, whether an example that might arise from your point is if, let's say, an old building is being used as a nightclub near the local community. In that example, I would say, of course, this kind of resource, it will definitely have its highest stakeholder in the local community. And I feel like that this could be actually a means to empower the community even more. Let's say how for the community to wield against, let's say, the municipal bodies, the authorities, and kind of, let's say, make their voices even more heard, if that makes sense. And in terms of gathering resources and collaborating with the other stakeholders, yes, resource gathering and collection is extremely involved with, first of all, yes, the local residents, the people who attend the place in first person, of course. And most importantly, in our cities in Europe, I feel it's very, very important to have some degree of communication with the authorities, with the who governs the land, because at the end of the day, in Europe, especially, I think all across the European Union, it's basically the same kind of concept, right? So having permissions, having the kind of knowledge that the local authorities have, I think can unlock an entire new, different world for our purpose, which is database gathering.
Thank you, first of all, for your contribution, for your question. And Francesco has, in a full way and extensive way, answered to the important points. And what I would like to add is that regarding the first point, the first matter that you mentioned, is that the context of Palermo is a context where a critical mass of places, of venues, of activities, of people to be involved still didn't go over the apex, we would say in Latin. So Palermo still needs to create momentum in this case. A matter like the one you mentioned would be a really good true point in cases like Rome, Venice, Florence, where there is already a saturation is in the way the urban space, the urban landscape is lived and perceived. But in Palermo, we still have, I think, a really good margin to improve that and to create more momentum specifically. I would also like to ask you where you're from. What is your background, your context?
My last master's was social work. So I worked in the community social services in England for about 20 years. And now I'm doing another master's at York in cultural heritage. But I have quite strong connections with Sardinia and Greece. So I'm hoping to work there if Brexit allows, hopefully one day. Yeah.
So thank you again. At this point of the call, since we went over the three big chapters of the event, I would, as everyone, love to listen Jasna and get to the ESACH position paper.
Okay, perfect. So yeah, once again, thank you very much for organizing this. Basically, ESACH stands for European Student Association for Cultural Heritage, and we, among many other initiatives, launched this summer a call for our members to organize spin-off events, exactly such as this one, with the basis of our position paper. So basically, the whole of ESACH started organizing very informally in the 2017, in the eve of the 2018 European Year of Cultural Heritage, and then later on continued as an informal youth and students network. Then came 2022, which was a European Year of Youth, and we decided to use that opportunity to basically ask youth how do they see the cultural sector, how do they see the heritage sector in particular, what are the downsides, what is their personal experience, how do they see themselves in let's say 5 or 10 years. And all of those information you can find in a very nice magazine called Quarterly. Back then it was called Quarterly. It was in 2023 that was published, and it's available on the ESACH site. And there we kind of did the graphical representation of all the answers, but that was not the point. The point was to use again that database of information to come up with proposals, to come up with ideas that youth can contribute. What we are always trying to say for this position paper is that it goes both ways. It's kind of request and reminder of what youth needs in the sector of cultural heritage, but it is all the same still what youth can bring to the table. So what can we do to make the sector more resilient, stronger, or more diverse? So basically what we came up with was 5 principles, which are inclusion, collaboration, intergenerational exchange, strengthening the sector, and new technologies. As you can see, they're very broad, but it was because we didn't want to leave any potential topic out of it, but we also wanted to emphasize how generic the topics that youth is dealing in heritage sector are, that it's not a specific problems that we're facing. We're facing more or less the problems that are being faced by many other youth communities. And with that position paper, we launched it, we presented it during the Europa Nostra Summit in 2023 in Venice. And again, it was just one of the steps for us to raise awareness on what we are doing, but also to try to give youth a stronger voice, a more unified voice within the heritage sector, as well as give youth the opportunity to learn from the best, to connect with the more experienced professionals, and kind of like to continue the joint efforts that we all share in the heritage sector. So with that in mind, again, I'm going back. This is when we launched the spin-off events, because we didn't want this to be yet another PDF on the website. We wanted to hear from our members. We wanted to hear about good practices, and these two today are amazing examples. We wanted also to hear about what's going wrong potentially, where can we maybe work better, what are the propositions, and etc. etc. Of course, I know that one hour event is not gonna cover all of this, but it is a start for us to start the dialogue, to start to unravel everything that we can talk about. And again, the idea is not only to have these events, we are recording almost all of them, and we are going to have an online depository of all the presentations, like I'm doing right now, of the position paper in all the different languages that we did our spin-off events. And then some of the organizers will be invited to present the conclusions of the events in Spain. So, and all of this is so we can have maybe a position paper 2.0 or 3.0, in the sense that it is a living document. And therefore, we would like to, first of all, invite everyone who is not yet a member to become a member of our network, but then also become an active member. I want to thank Marco and everyone in the group for all the hard work, for the initiative, for willingness to go through our emails and different requirements and to organize this, because this is the whole point of youth networking, is for us to meet, for us to see who is doing what, and then to try our best to connect people that are doing the similar things, to try to help you build up your network, to learn something from you, for you to learn something from us. So yeah, this is in a nutshell. Again, thank you very much for joining our initiative and your presentations into this lovely event. And what a way to start the week. Thank you.
Thank you.
It's so true. What a way to start the weekend. I would say what a way to start this 2025. So thank you so much, Jasna. Thank you again so much. I would love to say thank you to all of you, to all of our friends, of our interested professional students, young people like us who spent their time and their attention to this event. So I think it's really valuable to name them. Thanks to Roberto, who gave us a very valuable perspective from the ecological discipline, from the botanical and ecological point. Thank you, TC. Thank you, Guido, who intervened. Thanks, Camilla, who was present at the beginning and who I'm sure will give her contribution in one of our next events. Thank you, Giuseppe, Luigi, Dominic, Arturo, Bernardo Piraino, who I hope followed this event with great interest. Thanks to Aldo, to Ece. Thanks most of all to Francesco and Mariella, who were the true valuable sources of today's content, of today's workshop. All my admiration and compliments go to them, to Francesco and Mariella. Thanks most of all again to ESACH for welcoming us, for hosting us. I hope that this could be one of our first events that took place in Hi Camilla, which took place online, but over the next few months could also go and transform into a hybrid way, so that we could meet both in presence and online.